Hello and welcome to Marvelous Videos. Very few beings in the Middle-earth were as feared as the trolls. They had a reputation of being large and impervious monsters who were perfectly cruel and strong beyond measure. However, they were definitely not the brightest lamps to light up the ages with. Trolls were infamous for their half-witted, dense way of going about things. But don't underestimate these large guys for your regular dope next door. In fact, it's their sluggish one-track minds that made them the simple, always-out-for-blood villains that they were. Through the ages, they've held several roles. They've been used for their sheer brute force in the Misty Mountains, as tidy rook and pawn battle hybrids like the Olog-Hai, to the mighty beasts of burden like the mountain trolls. Their lore runs deep. Aside from J.R.R. Tolkien's Middle-earth origins, trolls are also rooted in Nordic folklore and mythological accounts. But just how many kinds of trolls are there? Let us put your Middle-earth knowledge to the test and explore the origins of trolls as well as their different breeds. But real quick, before we get into it, we have a small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing. It's a small click for you, but it means a lot to us. Thank you. What are trolls? Troll means a fiend or demon in Old Norse and Middle Ages spoken German. The trolls of the Old Norse origin found themselves unaccepted by humans for their repulsive, enormous form and hostile attitude, and as such, they lived far away from human settlements, in isolated mountains, rocks, and caves. In later Scandinavian folklore, a troll's description ranged from a giant, hideous monster to a natural, human-like figure, such as the ones found in Swedish folk tales. However, regardless of their appearance, they were always marked by animosity towards all others and a generally foul nature. They had never found a friend in humans or any other creatures, and I don't blame people for isolating them like that. I mean, would you want to go and chat up a 10-foot-something aggressive monster in your spare time? Lightning was said to frighten these trolls away, one of their few sensory weaknesses. In tales set around Denmark and Norway, they were called trollfolk, which translates to troll folk, and the smaller troll types were called huldrafolk, or hidden folk. In the fantasy arena of popular culture, trolls have taken their place as a supporting cast, helping the dark forces achieve their goals. They're featured in J.R.R. Tolkien's stories, as well as many online games and tabletop ones such as Dungeons & Dragons. Tolkien's works have no straightforward origin story for the trolls, making their genesis a grim potpourri of theories. But we'll lay out some of the more promising narratives for you. Trolls were an ancient race, first appearing in the twilight of the Eldar days, roughly towards the end of the First Age. Treebeard once said that trolls were an imitation of Ents made by Morgoth in mockery of their race, quite like he had done with the orcs who were twisted and tortured into form as a gross mockery of the elves. Another theory of troll origins comes from a trait exhibited by trolls of Middle-earth, their weakness to sunlight exposure. In his letter 153, Tolkien reveals that if the trolls do not take shelter from the sunlight, their bodies will return to the stuff of the mountains they were originally made of. So there's a possibility that Morgoth may have corrupted some creatures of the mountains, or rather, turned the stone itself into trolls by using dark arts. In a separate text in Morgoth's Ring, it's said that trolls already existed in nature, but Morgoth found them and tweaked them up into becoming hellish monsters that he could use for his purposes. The same text also states that trolls could have initially been corruptions of primitive humans themselves. In one way or another, Morgoth has a hand in converting trolls into the terrible creatures we see in the Lord of the Rings trilogy. The trolls have since been the Dark Lord's instruments through all the ages he battled for supremacy. They were among Morgoth's ranks in the year 472 of the First Age in the devastating Battle of the Unnumbered Tears. After that, the trolls were used in his and later Sauron's armies in the Second and Third Ages too. In 2480, Sauron sent out an assorted force of orcs and trolls to occupy the abandoned halls of Moria, where the Balrog lived. The trolls didn't have their own language and learned what little their pea-sized minds could hold of the common speech. Their blood was said to be black in color, and they talked in grunts. On a slightly off-topic note, I want to mention the movie Troll. A pretty epic version of the character is also available on Netflix. If you're interested in checking out more troll content, this movie is a great depiction that puts these monsters front and center. Now let us go through the different types of trolls the Middle-earth heroes were dealing with. Cave trolls. Cave trolls are large beasts who are ogre-like in their appearance, with thick skin, apish long arms, tough green scales, and flat toeless feet. They are featured in the Lord of the Rings movies as well as in J.R.R. Tolkien's books as humanoid monsters who fight alongside the Dark Lord's orcs. They are dark-skinned with green, tough scales that form a natural armor, and they have toeless flat feet. Their upturned, ruched nose sits between their eyes, almost looking like a third eye. In Peter Jackson's Fellowship of the Ring film, a cave troll comes to blows with the Fellowship in the chamber of Mazarbul in Moria. It's an immensely dominant creature. From Aragorn, Boromir, and Gandalf to the hobbits, everyone has a go at him, and he just flings people around like tennis balls. He even stabs Frodo, but Frodo is thankfully protected by his mithril chainmail shirt. It isn't until Legolas gets on the job, dispatching a quick arrow right through his mouth into his little brain, that the cave troll hits the floor. Unlike the film, the Fellowship of the Ring's book had plenty of cave trolls. Frodo even sticks a cave troll that he fights on his feet with his enchanted sword, but the big guy's skin was too thick for him to get mortally wounded. Ralph Bakshi's The Lord of the Rings animation shows the Mazarbul sequence as the most faithful representation of the Fellowship book, aside from one tiny digression. His cave trolls come with a set of large, wiggly toes.
Lie down your arms!
Hill trolls. A close kin of the mountain and cave troll variety, the hill trolls were considered to be taller than men, towering up to 12 feet. Their hide was rugged and lined with thorny scales. Hill trolls were a ruthless kind, biting off the necks of those they fought. These spoke the common speech and lived in a place called Coldfells, north of Rivendell, though they were known to come down from the hills in small groups. In The Hobbit, they're shown to look much like cave trolls. Many of them were recruited by Sauron and served in his armies. It was a bunch of hill trolls that captured Eriador, Aragorn's grandfather, in a region north of Rivendell and killed him. In Tolkien's work and the film adaptation, The Hobbit: An Unexpected Journey, the accounts of hill trolls are about the same, barring a few nips and tucks maybe. For instance, on their quest to reclaim Erebor, Thorin and his company of dwarves, accompanied by Bilbo, were captured by 3 trolls, named Tom, Bert, and William, who had come down from the hills. But the dull-brained lot was bested by Gandalf soon after they planned out how to make the best, most delicious meal of the dwarves. Gandalf imitated the trolls' voices, which distracted them until the night faded and the sun rose. And as the sunlight touched their skin, they turned to stone. The dwarves and company found the cave nearby, which the trolls had used for shelter, packed with gold and jewels looted from the passers-by the trolls had mauled. Thorin and Gandalf also found themselves some amazing elven blades buried under the loot. Another encounter of the hill trolls was the Battle of the Black Gate, where the hill trolls from Gogoroth brought mayhem to Gondor's soldiers. Surprisingly, Pippin, a middling hobbit, stabbed one of these supersized trolls in an attempt to save Baragon, a captain and guard of Gondor, from his wrath. Now, we actually have a calm and collected troll next on our list. Are you surprised that such a thing exists? Well, don't be. This troll cannot cause any real mess because he's on a permanent mannequin mode. Let us check out our unmoving number 3. Stone trolls. The trolls, which become stone after exposure to the sun, came to be known as the stone trolls. So these hill trolls we spoke about just earlier, Tom, Bert, and William, were turned into stone trolls with a little help from Gandalf. Many decades later, when Aragorn escorted Frodo and the hobbits to Rivendell, they passed through the Trollshaws, where they came across these 3 stone trolls from Bilbo's adventures. Up next, we've got the muscle-bound, mega-powerful monsters, mountain trolls. Mountain trolls, though quite similar to hill trolls, were larger and stronger than them. Their hide was of a brownish hue, and they were covered with stone-like scales over their back, arms, and their massive hands, which come into clear view as they push the Wolf's Head Grand in the Return of the King film adaptation to Minas Tirith's gates. Their strength was their claim to fame, and earned them their sole spotlight moment. During the siege of Minas Tirith, mountain trolls made up a part of Sauron's forces. It was these viciously powerful trolls that handled the Grond, the flaming, battering ram that broke open the thick gates of Gondor. Grond was forged with black steel and stood a daunting 100 feet in length. Lugging and manning this monstrous machine was left to the talents of the mountain trolls. They successfully tugged and smashed the Grond at gates, which broke open within a few attempts, a testament to the mountain trolls' enduring strength and stamina. Snow trolls. Snow trolls are presumed to be white furry dwellers of the cold, snowy places such as Forechel. They could have been mountain trolls or even the Olog-Hai that moved to colder climates and made a den there, eventually evolving a thick fur coat as protection against the frosty air. They are seen as solitary creatures, kind of like Yeti. We learned some traits of the snow trolls when Helm Hammerhand, the 9th king of Rohan, was compared to them. In the long winter, while the Dunlendings besieged him inside Hornsburg at Helm's Deep, which was named after his legend, he was said to sneak out of the Hornburg and stalk his enemies like snow trolls do before ruthlessly finishing them off with his bare hands. Helm's prowess with his fists and cold-blooded battle form had struck fear in the hearts of all his enemies in his time. His comparison with a snow troll goes to show just how formidable the snow trolls were considered. They were stealth stalkers, quite unlike all other kinds of trolls hiding in small and large groups in Middle-earth's dark, sunless crevices. Another snow troll appearance came in the first season of the Amazon series Rings of Power. Galadriel and her remaining company are attacked by a snow troll while exploring Durnost, an abandoned fortress where Sauron conducted his black arts. The powerful troll launches at them, wounding many before Galadriel and Thonder kill him. Up ahead, we have a troll variety that may just as easily be a fandom myth as an actual Tolkien creation: half-trolls. Within the army of the Haradrim that aided Sauron at the Battle of Pelennor Fields, there were some soldiers who were said to look like half-trolls, with white eyes and red tongues. However, it's unlikely that these soldiers were half-trolls, as they were never explicitly referred to as them. In any case, they were being described as such from the generalized perspective of the Rohirrim. Half-trolls, if they ever existed, were more likely a creation of Saruman's interbreeding experiments at Isengard, just like half-trolls. They would be a cross between humans and trolls. Try not to imagine that nasty experiment, folks. But while the half-orcs Saruman similarly bred were wilier than the regular orcs, the half-trolls could not have boasted better wits, as there are no known trolls who did. At best, they could only have had a slight upper hand, maybe progress up to a warden and gatekeeper level from that of a draft beast. But what do you think? Are half-orcs a real thing? Tell us in the comments below. Two-headed trolls. These trolls do not appear in a direct battle with any of Tolkien's protagonists, nor exist in any old troll myths. There's only a passing reference to them in the pages of The Hobbit, which honestly feels like a joke between the 3 hill trolls Bilbo and the dwarves come to pass in The Hobbit. So even though we have to mention the two-headed type, as the nifty lot of us at Marvelous Videos don't leave any stones unturned, there isn't any real incident describing them as inhabitants of Middle-earth. But there are a lot of adaptations of them in online and role-playing games and other literature, such as the Ettins in Narnia. Olog-Hai, standing tall at 10 to 15 feet, but shown as much taller in the Return of the King film, the Olog-Hai, translated to trollfolk in Black speech, were a new and advanced breed of trolls that appeared in the Third Age. Reared to be a superior version of the other trolls by Sauron, the Olog were cleverer and had the ability to wield sophisticated weapons that required higher skills from the fighter wielding them. And more importantly, these tank-like creatures could even endure sunlight. Their distinction from the ordinary troll could be likened to that of an Uruk-hai to an ordinary orc. They spoke in the Black speech, unlike most other troll breeds. In The Hobbit, the Battle of the Five Armies, Olog-Hai were a part of Azog's army in large numbers. A few mountain trolls were the shock troops that first breached the broken gates at Minas Tirith in The Return of the King. They wore large body armor, spiked helmets, and wielded spiked maces for weapons. This adaptation showed them with large bull hooves for feet and forward-facing orange eyes. Their hide varied in color, from green and gray to rusty brown. They also seemed to be hairier than the other trolls. And finally, a last action-packed appearance from these mammoth savages, the one at the Battle of the Black Gate. Many armored Olog-Hai and hill trolls with shields, hammers, and axes were present at the Battle of the Black Gate. One of the Olog-Hais was seen overpowering Aragorn in this battle, and he almost killed the great king-to-be. It wasn't until Frodo and Samwise succeeded in their quest by destroying the ring that the entire Black Army was pulled into the gates in panic. Aragorn was let off, pulling in a collective sigh of relief from the worldwide audience. Phew. Olog-Hai and the hill trolls are often confused with one another, and the reason for that is that it was most likely the hill trolls that Sauron had used to create the craftier version of trolls, the Olog-Hai. But as far as looks go, they are very similar, with the same spiky scaled hide, botched up nose, and sometimes even the same complexion. Marvelous verdict. The various types of trolls in Middle-earth are divided by their environment, which has also fostered different traits within them, but they still had many behavioral similarities. These ancient monsters were the absolute unthinking bads of the first 3 ages, a grave threat to anyone who wanted to pass through their burrows. And it's no wonder they made the perfect soldiers and literal weightlifters for Sauron throughout his war for Middle-earth's crown. Though some troll kinds were more effective than others, with hill trolls, mountain trolls, and Olog-Hai taking the lion's share of the limelight in stories among the tribes, they are all still awfully fascinating monsters, and we can't wait to see them tangled up with our heroes in tense sequences in the Rings of Power series, and maybe even other future spin-offs. Fingers crossed. That's all from us now. Don't forget to tell us which troll was the most effective monster in your books in the comments section below. And if you like this video, please smash the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. Stay safe now. Until next time.